Granit Xhaka is a dividing player. Granit Xhaka is someone who infuriates many and delights some too. And I have got to the stage where I feel that it does not matter what this guy can do, but there are some people that are never going to change their mind. And therefore, I'm going to waste some time trying to convince some people that he is, in fact, a good player. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for an episode of our Tactical Breakdown show. Now, usually what we do for the Tactical Breakdown episodes is we look at players that are linked to the Arsenal. At the moment, you may have noticed, I say may, I know you will have noticed, because all you guys do, as well as myself, is scroll until your thumb is down to the bone looking for new content and seeing who the Arsenal are linked to. And genuinely, it's been a bit quiet over the last week. And what I thought I'd start to do with the Tactical Breakdown show is kind of extend it beyond just looking at the players that we're being linked to and kind of go into some of the debates and look at some of the statistics and the tactics that are based around some of the players that we already have, some players that we might be signing, and have a quick sort of a discussion with you guys as well into what these players are bringing to us, players that maybe we need to look at moving on and upgrading on, and ultimately just trying to delve deeper into some of these Arsenal players. So we're going to do that with Granit Xhaka today and have a look at some of his statistics, make some comparisons between other players, and maybe it will change some people's minds. Maybe it will change my mind. Who knows at the moment? There's so many things that I've not read into about Granit Xhaka and comparing him to other players and stuff. And it may convince me by the end of this video. I may have a different opinion of the Swiss midfielder by the end of this video. And I think that what's important is that you also have the open-mindedness to go into this video and think, by the end of this, I'm open for my mind to be changed on Granit Xhaka. Because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in with it with the mind that if there's comparisons made and it turns out, wow, maybe I've been overrating this guy all this time, then certainly I've changed my mind a million times this season over different people. So I'm hoping that we can have the same impact on you guys today. The first thing that I do want to do, though, before we drop into the video is give a shout out to these guys. The expert members have been absolutely brilliant, as have all of our members. But the fact that the expert member family is growing to the point now where it's getting so big, I'm finding it difficult to fit onto the screen. I know that we've got 2 shows this month coming up in which our expert members have a chance to appear on the show, which I'm really looking forward to welcoming even more of you guys. We've had plenty of you on the show already this summer, and I'm looking forward to extend that even further. So if you're interested in making your appearance for the upcoming season, make sure you sign up and help support the channel and become an expert member. You get access to exclusive content, and also, of course, you get to stand out in the chat and get priority with questions and comments and highlighting of the like. So if you want to get involved with us expert members, they're a great group of people. Maybe we should sorting out like a Discord server for the expert members. That might be quite good to have a discussion-based chat going on between everyone. I'll have to have a look into it. But yeah, thank you to everyone you can see on the screen there. They're absolutely brilliant group of people. And if you want to become a member, it means you get your badges as well that link up to. And if you want to become a member for the long term, they increase and make you look a little bit more pretty in the chat, which is always nice. But let's jump into today's video and talk about Granit Xhaka. Now, what I thought I'd do is have a quick look through his statistics for this season, because a lot of people, I feel, can forget, in fact, what Granit Xhaka has done for Arsenal this year. And it's a season which has been indifferent for the Swiss midfielder. He's got to the point where he experienced, as he describes himself, as sort of one of the lowest points of his life. I was there at the Emirates for Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 2, when Granit Xhaka effectively told the fan base to F off. It was a moment I've never quite experienced in my life for any player of any team, let alone my own. And so to experience that in the ground was perplexing. I was angry. I put out a show almost immediately after it happened. I think it was on the day or the day after, basically saying that I didn't want Granit Xhaka to be ever a player at the Gunners again, and especially not as captain. He obviously lost his captaincy and he was out of the team for quite a while, in fact. And it seemed as though he could be moving off to Hertha Berlin in January. But Arteta came in, gave him a clean slate, and, well, I mean, the rest is history. Granit Xhaka completely changed under Mikel Arteta and became absolutely integral to the rejuvenation of our side. And ultimately, massively integral to us winning a trophy at the end of the season and qualifying for Europe once again. So that is, of course, really, really positive. But let's go a little bit deeper into his statistics for this season. This, of course, is over the course of the whole season average. So in terms of defensive duels, just over 50% of the defensive duels that he got involved with, he was winning. 46% of aerial duels, he was also winning as well, getting involved with just over 3 of those. Loose ball duels, nearly 3 in each game, and he was winning 43.3% of those. Sliding tackles, not too much involved in that. He's not a player that dives in all that often for Arsenal. Once every 2 games is what you're going to see from a sliding tackle. Interceptions is just under 5, which actually is quite impressive. Just under 5 interceptions for a player that's playing in the midfield too. Losses to recoveries. Now, a lot of people moan that he loses the ball a fair chunk, does Granit Xhaka. But when we have a look into some of the comparisons, you'll see actually that we may be exaggerating the amount of times that Granit Xhaka loses the ball. And when he's recovering the ball more times than he is losing it, that too is definitely in the Swiss midfielder's favour. Clearances, he's nearly making 2 clearances per game, which is higher than it's so higher than so many other Premier League midfielders in the game. The fouls one is one that concerns people. We know what he's like. He makes a fair few fouls over the course of a season, 1.62 fouls across each game on average. And the yellow cards, that is also something that does frustrate people. 0.31, one every 3 games nearly he receives a yellow card. And no reds he got this season, which is an improvement on, I think, his first year when he got 3 or 4. So he's growing, he's improving, he's maturing in terms of a player. But what's really good is that we can actually have a look at some of the comparisons that we can make between these players. Now, that someone I want to compare him to, firstly, is that I want to have a look at what Everton have been doing, because some of the things that people have been saying is that they can't quite believe that Arsenal have not gone for the likes of Doucoure and for Allan of Napoli that has now joined as well. And I don't buy into that at all. I don't see the need to upgrade Xhaka to a Doucoure or to an Allan, because for me, Xhaka is better than both of those players. And we can have a look at the statistics as well to make some comparisons. So let's do that. And let's have a look at some of this stats. So if we're breaking in first with Doucoure, you can see there that in terms of defensive duels, he is winning in this instance, certainly so. 6.68 defensive duels, 54% of those are being won. In comparison to Granit Xhaka, 50.6% of defensive duels, nearly 6 duels are being made in each game. But that is about it in regards to Doucoure. Now, I should caveat with, I know people are going to come out saying that Doucoure can play in a more advanced position as well, has been seen bursting further up the pitch, but I don't look at Granit Xhaka as a defensive midfielder. I don't look at him as a solid CDM for Arsenal whatsoever. The tag deep line playmaker comes about quite often, but actually playing in the midfield too, what we've seen is him playing as a centre midfielder. He's been playing as a 6/8 for Arsenal for the 6 months that he's been under Arteta, because that's what both him and Ceballos have been doing. You would be surprised to see how far advanced up the pitch Granit Xhaka actually got. And so many times Ceballos was the guy that dropped in behind Xhaka, won the ball back, played it to his Swiss counterpart and moved it up the pitch. So I don't want that being disregarded in this sense. If we have a look at the aerial duels, 3.1, 43.8% success rate compared to Xhaka's 46%. And then moving forward to loose ball duels, Doucoure, 3.51, 43.1% of those are being won. And Xhaka is winning 43.3%. So ever so slightly a higher success rate in terms of those loose ball duels. Sliding tackles are a bit strange. It's weird how little times players actually slide tackling games. We find on the Tactical Breakdown show that often we look at these and say, it's an incredibly low amount sometimes that these players, and sliding tackles are not really a measurable factor in how good a defender is. It's great when you see them happen. I know that Saliba did it in his debut friendly game against, who was it that we played? Someone will remind me. And I think it was MK Dons, wasn't it? And there was a sliding tackle that was going around of all of like social media, and I was sitting there thinking, we're really overhyping what and how good a slide tackle is. It's actually quite a risky move in a lot of cases. So moving into the interceptions, 3.53 interceptions for Doucoure in comparison to 4.99 interceptions for Granit Xhaka. Losses. Look at the losses that Abdoulaye Doucoure racks up during a game. 11.11 losses are being made per match, and he's recovering 7.19. If we look at the comparison to Granit Xhaka, his recoveries are actually higher. This is what I'm saying. So I think that there's such a mindset sometimes about Granit Xhaka and how he plays, is that psychologically, a lot of people only see the negative side of his game. And whenever he makes a mistake, it becomes this massive thing, this huge, massive thing that people decide to make compilations of his negative attributes. I don't think I've ever once seen someone go to the effort of making a positive compilation of Granit Xhaka so far. I had a 10-minute scroll earlier, or it wasn't even that, a 5-minute scroll. I managed to put together 10 clips. I took it down off Twitter because I was like, no, I don't really want the copyright issues on there. So I took it down. But in terms of if people are interested in that, I'm more than happy to DM you that little compilation. But it just goes to show that 5 minutes of research and you can find some really positive actions from the Swiss midfielder. Carrying on with the comparisons there, 0.49 clearances for Doucoure compared to Xhaka's 1.96. It is fouls where Doucoure does improve though. 1.36 isn't exactly low, but it's certainly better than the 1.62 that Granit Xhaka's bringing in. And in terms of yellow cards, also discipline-wise, yes, Doucoure does come in over there. But I don't look at Doucoure as thinking he's a better player. And Doucoure playing at Watford has had more opportunities to show his defensive prowess in a team like Watford that have been under the cosh a lot more than, say, a team like Arsenal. Although you look at Arsenal across the whole season, we absorbed pressure so much under Unai Emery that there was loads of opportunities for Granit Xhaka to show his defensive side of his game as well. So I don't think you can really look at that in too much detail. Let's then have a look at Mr. Allan, who, of course, has joined Everton from Napoli, someone that I know a lot of people liked. A lot of people in Italy rave about them, although have said that his stock has fallen of late. If we make sure we get the right competitions, here we go. Yep, that's fine. Looking then defensively, again, 55% of his defensive duels he is winning. That is better than Xhaka's. Aerial duels also better. Loose ball duels, though, if in regards to Xhaka, he's winning that one. It's interceptions, though. 4.32 compared to Xhaka's 4.99 interceptions per game. Losses to recoveries, again, Allan is losing the ball more so than Granit Xhaka. And Allan is someone who I look at as a much more defensive-minded player than I do Granit Xhaka. And he's losing the ball more often than what our Swiss midfielder is doing. And he's recovering it less than he is losing the ball too, which is not something you can say about our Swiss midfielder. He recovers the ball more times than he does lose it in games. Clearances are lower than Granit Xhaka, and fouls are actually weirdly quite high for Allan, 1.64 in each game compared to 1.62 fouls for Granit Xhaka. So Allan's making more fouls per game ever so slightly than our Swiss midfielder. And weirdly receives less yellow cards. So I know that what Granit Xhaka does, he does get frustrated when he loses the ball in dangerous positions and often leads to a professional foul in which he gets a yellow card. But the fact that Allan there is just making as many fouls there as Granit Xhaka I just don't see the hype. I don't see the reason why someone would turn around to me and say that we should have gone over Allan to try and replace someone like Granit Xhaka. It doesn't make sense for the outlay. I get that his defensive side in terms of like the percentage of the duels, it's a 5% difference. And then interceptions and losses and recoveries, Xhaka beats him in all of those. I just don't see why. And I don't see the front of the side of things to really push for an Allan over a Granit Xhaka. It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. I feel like I've been neglecting you guys in the chat box, so I'm going to give you a chance to shout through some of your comments. Now, Smaug5 says, sorry if you've already talked about this, but if Partey comes, who would be the actual DM in your lineup? Why didn't you put Partey, Sabas, and Xhaka together? Did I not at one point? I felt like I did put them all together at one stage in yesterday's show. If you want to check out what I thought Arsenal could line up like next season, make sure you check out yesterday's video. In terms of Partey, though, I think he's someone that doesn't come in and replace Xhaka. I feel like he comes in and plays with Xhaka, and that gives you such solidity in the midfield, and it's really important that you've got that. Babish says the problem with this is that he is a good player. That's the problem. You will not win the big trophy with good players and be the big or top clubs in the country. Sorry, but that's the truth. Well, I'm sorry, but Arsenal did just win a major trophy this season with Xhaka in the midfield. And if you've looked at Arsenal and the time that Xhaka has spent in this Arsenal team during his time at the club, it's been one of the worst teams we've seen in a long time. And I'm telling you that if Xhaka is put into a better side, they go on to win things. And it's not going to be Xhaka bringing them down. If anything, Xhaka has been one of the biggest reasons why we've not slumped further than we actually have. I just don't buy into this argument about does Xhaka get into a Man United, Man City. I'm sorry, but it doesn't simply work that way. He's at Arsenal. He's in a team which is, in terms of individuals, inferior to those sides in a lot of senses. And if Xhaka was put into those teams, he might perform even better than he's doing now. So to turn around to me and say that he doesn't start for any of those teams, he's not been given the opportunity to. He's not been given the opportunity in those games where you've seen players move to them like Jorginho or Gundogan or whatever. They've been playing at big, big clubs for the majority of their careers at the top. And I'm sorry, but if Granit Xhaka goes into those teams, I don't think he flounders. I don't think he does anything. I don't think he does anything worse than he's done at Arsenal. And he could even possibly outshine those players. I just don't see the argument. It's an impossible comparison to make. You just can't turn around and say that he would be worse or he doesn't get into those teams. It's a really strange argument to put forward. It's a really strange one. And actually, when you look at some of the stat comparisons themselves, some of them may surprise you, but I don't think it's worth turning around and saying, let's compare him to Jordan Henderson. Let's compare him to these players, because in different systems and in different teams, the statistics aren't really comparable. It just doesn't really work. And that's why when we do the tactical breakdown shows, I'm really reluctant to compare players that we're linked with players that are already at the club, because their stats are going to be so skewed by the situations that they were in. And I know I sound like a massive hypocrite now, having just looked at Allan and looked at Doucoure. But the only reason I did that is because I was looking for really clear, stark differences between the players. And you just can't see that. You just can't see enough of a difference between them to legislate turning around and saying, oh my God, how have we not gone for Doucoure and Allan? There's just not enough of a difference between those two players to turn around and say that either one or the other should be being brought in over Granit Xhaka. The only passing backwards, Jonathan Vassano says Granit Xhaka only passes backwards. Let's have a look at that statistic, shall we? Let's see if Granit Xhaka only passes backwards. It's something that's leveled at him quite a lot. Let's have a look if that's actually the case. Let's make sure we get all the right competitions. Have we there? Yes, we have. Passing, forward to backward passes. Well, if you're looking at the screen that I'm looking at there, forward passes 16.08, backward passes 7.6. So more than double his backward passes does Granit Xhaka do last season for Arsenal. So this whole thing about Granit Xhaka only passes backwards, I'm sorry, but I don't really know where that comes from. I don't really get it. Let's actually have a look at some of his passing stats. We may have to do that. 89.4% passing accuracy, 65.3% long passing accuracy. Very good for a long passer. Passes into the final third, 82.7%. Passes into the box, 53.6%. Received passes 40 times per game. And a lot of what I saw as well is that people were turning around to me and saying that he needs to score more. He needs to assist more. I'm sorry, but you can't just measure a player's quality in terms of goals and assists. I didn't see people turning around to like Thomas Partey and looking at his goals and assists. I think Thomas Partey, off the top of my head, scored 3 goals this season. And I don't see people turning around saying, oh, I don't want to sign Thomas Partey. He's only scored 3 goals in La Liga this season. I'm going to check that, in fairness. It's probably right I do. Let's have a look at Thomas Partey on Transfermarkt, and it'll tell us how many goals he scored this season. If it is 3, you drop a like on this video for just pure knowledge being fired out here. This season, Thomas Partey in La Liga has scored 2019-20... Quicken up the internet. 3 goals! He's actually scored 3 goals. Unbelievable stuff. I should prove that to you. Otherwise, you're not going to believe me. So let's jump that on and I can have a look. 3 goals, no assists for Thomas Partey this season in La Liga. I mean, and he's got... And I don't really get the argument around Granit Xhaka needing to score more goals, needing to get more assists. And yet we're really, really trying to press to get Thomas Partey in And yet, for some reason, goals and assists don't matter to him, but they do matter for Granit Xhaka. And I just don't get the hypocrisy there. Why does it matter for one player and not for the other? Super Saver says they're different players. They could form an excellent partnership, 100%. I think that they can form a partnership together. The difference is that Partey is levels above Xhaka. And I'm not saying that he isn't a better player. Thomas Partey is a better player than Granit Xhaka is. But I do think that they do different things. Granit Xhaka is not a player that is going to beat the press, enable you to beat that high press that we saw Leicester do at the Emirates this season. Thomas Partey will do that. But you're not going to see Thomas Partey being the main guy that utilises the wide areas, that can turn and drive forward. They can both do that. I love how they both do that. And to have two players that are in deep positions on the pitch, both able to turn and drive the ball forward, I think is really strong. I think part of Xhaka's game that goes unnoticed is the way that he drives the ball forwards. If you want to have a look at some of the compilations, shoot me a DM over at the Granit TV, and I'll absolutely no problem at all prove it to you. If you want to do that, just hit us up with the link that's at the top of the screen there. I just don't see where this whole goals and assists argument comes from. It doesn't make sense to me. Let's get some more of your... Let's prove some more myths wrong. Jamie Stephen Dunn says a midfield three of Partey, Allan, Ceballos, and Xhaka as backup. To be honest, I think that what people get hung up on, and another thing that this kind of plays into the Van der Beek argument, I'm seeing a lot of people criticise Manchester United for signing Van der Beek when they've already got Pogba and Fernandes and Fred and McTominay, etc., etc. But the thing is that teams don't necessarily have to play the same 11 every single week. And you can play different combinations of midfields against different oppositions, not only one for best fitness, but for flexibility tactically against different oppositions. And I think that by bringing in both Ceballos and Partey, and if in some dreamland you are able to get Aouar as well, which I don't see happening, there's no reason why Xhaka couldn't be playing a significant amount of minutes with Partey in games that we need to be really solid in the midfield. And then you can either play Ceballos in front of them to add some more steel, or you can play Aouar or Emile Smith-Rowe in front of them to add that bit of creativity. You need different options. Arteta needs different options. And to just restrict yourself to say, this is the midfield three, this is who we play every week, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't work that way. It's about making incremental changes. I'm not talking about changing the whole team. I'm not talking about tinkering like Unai Emery did when he first came in. I'm talking about making small changes per game to fit and suit things without breaking the mold too much. And I think that's really important. ASN says, I like Xhaka, but what about the numbers of errors and mistakes leading to opposition chances and goals? Is there any way we can find it? Because I know that Y-Scout, unfortunately, doesn't actually support that as a statistic. So errors leading to goals for Xhaka. I'm not expecting to be low. That's 2018-19. Premier League stats, errors leading to goals. If we try and find Mr. Granit Xhaka, 2019-20, in terms of rank, last season, I'm not filtered by club. Here we go. Arsenal is not on there. Apparently, according to the Premier League statistics, again, I will show this on the screen for you, so you you know I'm not messing you about. But in terms of last season, and tell me if I'm on the wrong thing here, but as you can see from the screen there, Bernd Leno, David Luiz, Socrates, 2, 2, and 1 led to goals from errors last season. Granit Xhaka did not make a single error that directly led to a goal. Now, the word directly, I think, certainly comes up here. And I think that there are times that Xhaka has maybe lost the ball or he's been tackled, and then that opposition movement has then gone on to score. I'm not saying that hasn't happened. But the thing is that a lot of people will turn around and say that one loss of the ball is the reason we conceded, when in reality, there was a whole load of defensive errors that also happened afterwards that then led to that goal going in. But just because it was Xhaka in that one moment that lost the ball, that then led to the goal, and then they scored. And it's all down to Xhaka losing the ball in that moment. But actually, a solid team. And there's lots of midfielders in the Premier League at the top clubs that lose the ball. But because of the solidity of the midfield and the defence, they are covered by that. Xhaka didn't have that security. And just because of that, when he does lose the ball and there is a conceding of a goal there, it is emphasised so much more. If you put Xhaka in a team with a Van Dijk, etc., and he loses the ball, you barely ever see any errors leading to goals because they'd have the cover in behind. And I think that goes astray sometimes in people's minds. It's just my thoughts on that one. Peter Renner says, you need good squad depth to compete in all competitions, which comes to about 60 plus games if you want to make the finals in the top league. Super Saber says, in my opinion, he won't need so much mobility if he has people to spray passes to and a few runners ahead of him. And he does that job extremely well, giving players time to catch their breath and go. And you know, one thing about Santi Cazorla, and I'm not going to try and make a comparison between the two of them, is that Santi Cazorla was never the fastest player in the world. He wasn't. But he was an excellent passer and he was excellent at getting out of tight situations. And I look at Granit Xhaka and I'm thinking, he's not the fastest player in the world. I think it's overstated that he's a slow player. I don't look at Granit Xhaka as a genuine slow player. I think he's actually quite good I think he's better on the ball than what a lot of people give him credit for. And his passing is excellent. And you know what really annoys me as well is that when I was asking the question last night on Twitter, and I'm going to try and curtail all of the Xhaka stuff after this video. I feel I've said everything I need to say on the topic after today. But I felt like anything that you go and say about Granit Xhaka and someone says, well, what's good about him and don't say passing. I mean, what's that about? What is that about? That's like turning around and saying, what's good about Roger Federer other than his backhand? And I know, and I know that he's very good at other things, but taking away someone's strongest asset and asking you to say what's good about them other than that, it's just not fair. It's not fair at all. It's like, what's so good about the Gooner Talk except tactical breakdowns? It's not fair. It's just not fair, is it? You can't turn around and say you're able to describe someone in their best form, but you can't use what's best about them, because what's best about a player is ultimately what they die on. It's what they're going to die on their sword for. And Granit Xhaka's passing is one of the best things about him. And it shouldn't be something that you just disregard because he's good at it. It makes absolutely no sense. Remember when Xhaka caught up with Salah, says Machiavelli, and I 100% take that true. And Jay Dubia says, Tom, truth is that Granit is necessary. Every team needs that 100%. And I think that teams will have these players. And I feel like the Jordan Henderson thing this season, where he won Player of the Year, I think it was, the Premier League Player of the Year, not so much the PFA, that's still going, of course. But Jordan Henderson, without Jordan Henderson in the team, Liverpool just didn't look that same really good side. And it's the same thing for Arsenal and Xhaka, because when he's not in the side, we don't win as much, we lose more, we don't score as much, and we concede more. And teams need players like that to keep things working, keep things ticking over. And without them, it really, really does struggle. And I just don't understand why it's always him as the scapegoat. It really makes no sense. I get that there was controversy, but the thing is, he got a hell of a lot of abuse even before that the whole controversy at Crystal Palace happened. And it's just a real shame that people can't seem to just get behind him and support him. And it's always which we need to get rid of him. And I'd rather spend more time pointing out the positives of Granit Xhaka's game than doing a video just blasting him, because it just makes no sense. Christopher Fung says, in the right system, Xhaka is an excellent player. Arteta has built a structure around him that accentuates his strengths and hides his obvious weaknesses. And I think that's important to say, that Xhaka, I'm not turning into someone that just thinks I'm completely blind to what Granit Xhaka is bad at. There are times that Granit Xhaka just loses his head, makes some silly choices, passes that aren't quite right. And the thing is with humanity is that we always focus on the negative things. You give someone, if there's a fantastic thing that I saw, and I've used this analogy a couple of times on the channel, but for people that are new, people that know I'm a teacher, the first thing that I went into school with, and I was observing a lesson, and the teacher puts on the board, starts writing down 5 calculations. And the first calculation is completely wrong. And he writes the first calculation as completely wrong, goes to write down the second, third, fourth, fifth that are fine. No problem with them whatsoever. And you've got the students in the background and they're giggling and they're going, so you've made a mistake. And the teacher turns around and he says, hold on. So I made one mistake. I got 4 things right and you focused on that one mistake. And it's just how humanity is that the mistakes and the errors and the negativity is accentuated so much more than what the positives are in a player's game. And I think Xhaka is a massive victim of that, is that the mistakes that he makes get accentuated so much more. And even more so, they're exaggerated by the fact that our defence behind them has always been suspect. So any mistakes he made in the midfield were then likely to lead to a much more devastating thing for ourselves, because of what was behind him couldn't give him that same security. And I like that what Christopher is saying there is about, if you add the players around Granit Xhaka to make him secure, to enable him to do what he's best at, which is linking play between the defence and the midfield in the wide areas, as well as being really sturdy sometimes, being the guy that can block chances, clear balls, you've got a real chance for a special player to be in your side. And he doesn't get given enough opportunities by people. He just really doesn't. Joseph says the thing with Xhaka is that people find annoying is his lack of improvement from season to season in terms of consistency and obvious weaknesses. He must improve on those in the next 2 seasons. It's very obvious that Xhaka is going to be here in the long term. I can't see Mikel Arteta turning away from that, even if we were to sign a Thomas Partey. And for that instance is that we need to be looking at improvement, yes, and we've seen that over the last 6 months. Granit Xhaka has been integral to this Arsenal side under Arteta, and it's important that he maintains that form into next season. If he makes mistakes, I'm hoping that having improved defenders like Gabriel and Saliba, and looking at other players like Ainsley Maitland-Niles being better and improving, and Tierney being better, and our goalkeepers being better, will mean that those mistakes will not be highlighted as much, because they won't lead to as bad of things happening as they would have done before. So I'm hoping that that improved form will hide, and the improved form of the defenders will mean that those mistakes will not be as accentuated as they were previously. Avon says a lot of players and under 21s are on duty in regards to what Archie was talking about, which I'm assuming it was a point about why we're not seeing players playing the friendlies. Jamie says, Tom, fun fact about Xhaka. He had the highest successful passes out of the whole Arsenal squad last season in the Premier League, with an average of 53.7. Something like that. It might not have been 53.7. And his passing is always, we've always talked about it, it's always good. And the whole myth about him saying that he only passes backwards, well, that myth has been completely busted today. He's got more than double forward passes compared to his backward passes this season. So that's out the window. Rydog says, watching with the Swiss national side, he's immense every single time. People just focus on the club and exaggerate things. Clearly a limited player, but he's got a lot of strength too. And I don't think that's in question. I'm not turning around and saying that Granit Xhaka is a world-class player. I'm just trying to make out that he's nowhere near as bad as a lot of people say that he is. And he is actually, in fact, a good player. In fact, I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's world-class, because he makes too many mistakes for that. But he's certainly someone that, when you look at the Arsenal side, Granit Xhaka is not one of the first people in the team that I think, right, yeah, we need to upgrade on him. No, there's 3 midfield positions that we've got. He fills one of them. It's the other 2 that are the ones that we really need to be backing. Sabas is coming in, that's great. But we need to add a creative midfielder, and we need to add a Thomas Partey that can play with a Granit Xhaka. I don't look at anyone coming in and thinking they're the one that's going to replace Xhaka. I want someone that's going to come in and help Xhaka be even better than he already is. That's just where I'm sitting on it. But B says, Super Sabre, in with you on that. And if you read the other comments I have in the chat, you will get me. I said Arteta save him, and he's got much better. So I want to see that for a whole season under Arteta. And the big questions are going to be answered come this season. Is Granit Xhaka going to be able to continue his form? Is he going to be as integral? If we sign up Thomas Partey, etc., is he going to have enough minutes? Is he going to be playing with him? Is he going to be replaced by him? Ultimately, we still are waiting for the answers to those questions. A massive big thank you and shout out again to our expert members, Ezial, Abdullah, Rue, Grass, Afnan, Zamir, TD Shifts, Chris, Victor, Iron Cub, Mahir, Ashwin, Owen, Mike, Cole, Gary, Matt from Dull Square to Wear, Jasmeet, The Real Janice, Gunner SS, Abid97, Olusola, Glenn, Mosaic, PMHK, Brian Robles, Jared, Aaron, Alex, Avon, Daniel, and Rohit. Thank you ever so much, guys. As I said, look out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the community tab. That is when I'll be posting about the Expert Members podcast. Depending on how much interest there is, there could be a few of these shows coming up. So if you want a chance to appear on the show, and if you want to help support the channel and get access to exclusive content, then make sure you join up and get involved with the Expert Members scheme. I'm going to look forward to trying setting up a Discord server very soon as well, so you guys can have some expert member discussion. But I'm looking forward to that, and I can't wait to involve you guys some more. If you've enjoyed the video, please make sure you drop a like on it. But other than that, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you. I hope maybe that you've had your mind changed to Granit Xhaka. I know that I certainly have improved my own opinion of the player just by talking about him with you guys. We'll be back again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.